The wind screamed through the frozen cliffs of Taralis 9. It was not a place made for warmth or laughter. The sun barely touched the ground, and snow fell like dust from the sky, day after day. In a deep valley beneath the ice peaks lived the Valkyrin pack, tall, fur-covered creatures with eyes that glowed faintly gold in the dark. They lived by rules of the wild, strong in loyalty and in pride. They hunted together, mourned together, and guarded their young above all else. On that cold morning, silence covered their den. Only the soft whimper of wind echoed through the cave. Vara, the pack's leader, stood at the mouth of the den, her breath steaming in the air. Around her, other Valkyrin lowered their heads. They had searched for 3 full days, but the small cubs were gone, lost to the storm. Vara's eyes were hard as stone. Her cubs were part of her soul, and now they were gone. The snowstorm had started without warning. The young ones had been playing near the lower ridges when the white wall of wind rolled in. The hunters had run out to find them, but the storm grew wild. Tracks vanished, scents disappeared, and only one thing remained: the faint print of human boots in the snow. To the Valkyrin, humans were strangers from the stars. They had arrived on Taralis 9 only 2 cycles ago, building metal shelters and landing ships near the frozen plains. They spoke in strange voices and carried fire in their hands. Some packs kept away, others watched from afar. Vara did not trust them. Humans did not belong to this land. They built too much, talked too much, and smelled of iron and oil. She believed they were the reason nature had begun to shift, and now perhaps the reason her cubs were gone. That night, as the storm howled outside, the pack gathered around the Firestone pit. The warmth shimmered on the walls. Vara did not speak for a long time. When she finally did, her voice was low and steady. "We will search again when the wind sleeps," she said. "If the humans took them, they will answer." A growl of agreement rippled through the den. The pack bowed their heads and waited for the storm to die. Far from the den, through white winds and endless snow, a single human man fought his way uphill. His name was Captain Reed Holtz. Once he had been a starship officer, a soldier of the old colonies. But the wars had ended badly. He had seen enough loss to last a lifetime, and when his ship was decommissioned, he chose to live on this quiet planet. Or so he thought. Nothing on Taralis 9 was quiet for long. Now Reed was half buried in snow, his breath shallow, his clothes stiff with ice. He pulled behind him a small sled made from a broken panel of his shelter's wall. On it lay a bundle, wrapped in thermal blankets, 3 small shapes breathing faintly. He had found them that morning at the edge of a frozen ravine, where the storm had thrown fallen trees across the ice. He had been searching for scrap metal when he heard the soft cries. At first he thought it was the wind, until he saw the movement under the snow. He dug for an hour with his bare hands. When he pulled out the first cub, it barely moved. The others were buried deeper, tangled in ice roots. He wrapped them in his blanket, pressed them to his chest, and whispered words they could not understand. "You're going to be all right. I've got you." Reed had lost his own family years ago on Titan's mining colony. His wife and daughter had been trapped during a reactor collapse. Since then, every life he found, human or not, carried the same weight. He could not walk away from a cry for help. So now, though his fingers were numb and his body shook with cold, he walked through the storm for creatures that were not even his kind. The blizzard bit harder as night fell. The horizon vanished. Even his compass froze. He followed only the faint glow of the mountains ahead, where the Valkyrin dens were said to lie. His vision blurred, his lips cracked, and every step felt heavier than the last. But when one of the cubs gave a weak whimper from the sled, Reed pushed forward again. Hours passed before he saw movement, shadows against the white wind, wolf-like shapes watching from the cliffs. Their eyes glowed faintly golden in the dark. He knew he had reached them. He dropped to his knees, clutching the bundle close, and raised his voice though it trembled. I found them, he shouted. His words broke in the wind. They're alive. The figures moved fast, silent, graceful, and cautious. Reed could see the sharp outlines of claws, the heavy fur, the watchful eyes. A tall one stepped forward, larger than the rest, with silver streaks across her muzzle. Vara. She stared at him with suspicion and anger. The pack spread out behind her, growling low. Reed tried to stand, but his legs gave out. He stumbled forward and unwrapped the bundle. 3 small cubs, their fur damp with melted snow, their eyes half open, let out weak sounds. Vara froze. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then she stepped closer, her breath steaming over the cubs. She sniffed them carefully, the familiar scent of her children. She gave a sharp cry, half a howl and half a sob, that echoed through the mountains. The pack's growls turned to yelps of surprise and joy. The cubs stirred weakly, one of them reaching a small paw toward her chest. Reed tried to smile, but he was shaking too hard. They were trapped, he whispered. I dug them out. He swayed on his knees. You should take them now. The last thing he saw before his eyes closed was Vera's face hovering close, not angry anymore, but uncertain, almost human in her expression. Then darkness took him, and he collapsed into the snow. When Reed woke, everything was soft and warm. He blinked and saw flickering light. He was lying inside a cave, wrapped in furs that smelled of earth and pine. Near him, glowing stones burned with a steady heat. He tried to move, but his body ached all over. Then he heard it, the soft sound of breathing. He turned his head. The cubs were beside him, sleeping in a pile, their fur rising and falling. One of them had its paw resting against his arm. For a moment, Reed thought he was dreaming. A low growl made him look up. Vara was standing at the edge of the firelight. Her eyes studied him carefully. You live, she said, her voice rough and strange, like wind through stone. Reed nodded weakly. Guess so. She stepped closer, her movements silent. You carried them through the storm, she said. It was not a question. I found them, Reed answered. Couldn't leave them. Vera's gaze softened slightly, though her stance stayed proud. You are strange, she murmured. Humans do not walk into storms for another's young. Reed gave a small smile. Maybe this one does. The silence between them was not cold anymore. Vera looked down at the cubs, then back at him. They live because of you, she said. But you are weak. Rest. You will speak again when the sun returns. Reed wanted to thank her, but sleep pulled him down before he could. Outside, the wind began to calm. The storm that had swallowed the valley for days finally started to fade. By the next sunrise, the whole pack knew the story. The human who had risked his life for their young was alive, resting under their protection. Vara stayed near the entrance, watching the horizon, her thoughts silent. For the first time in many moons, she wondered if perhaps she had judged the humans too quickly. This one had brought back her heart, her children, when the storm had taken all hope away. And somewhere deeper in the den, as snowflakes drifted outside, a small cub opened its eyes and crawled closer to the sleeping man. It pressed its tiny head against his hand, then curled beside him for warmth. Reed stirred faintly, and without waking, moved his hand to shield the cub from the chill. The valley was silent again, but this time it was not the silence of morning. It was the silence of something new being born between two distant worlds. When Reed woke again, the world was quiet. The firestones burned softly, casting a warm orange glow across the cave walls. He could hear the faint hum of wind outside, calmer than before. His body felt sore but stronger. The scent of cooked roots and herbs filled the air. Someone, or something, had taken care of him. He sat up slowly and saw Vara near the entrance, her tall shape outlined by the pale light from outside. Around her, the pack rested, silent guardians watching the dawn. The cubs were curled close to him again, their tiny bodies pressing against his side for warmth. One of them yawned, showing small, sharp teeth, then looked up at him with sleepy eyes. Reed smiled faintly. "Hey there, little one," he whispered. Vera turned her head. "You are awake," she said. Her voice still carried power, but it was softer now. "Yeah," he answered. "Didn't think I would be." "You were nearly frozen when you came," she said. "The healers did not know how to help a human. We only used warmth and time." "Well," Reed said, touching his arm where the cub's paw rested. "Seems like it worked." The pack's eyes followed him quietly. They were still unsure, and a human among them was unheard of. Vara stepped closer, her fur silver in the firelight. "You risked your life for the young," she said. "Why?" Reed hesitated, thinking about what to say. "Because they needed help," he said simply. It didn't matter who they belonged to. Her eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger, but in thought. "You speak strange," she said. "Humans and Valkyrin have not shared trust, yet you act as if we are one." Reed gave a small shrug. "Where I come from, loss is the same no matter the species." For a while neither spoke. Only the soft crackle of fire filled the space. Then Vara turned toward the mouth of the cave. "The storm has ended," she said. "The snow will soften. You should return to your people before it rises again." Reed looked outside. The valley was white and endless, but calm. "Maybe later," he said. "I need to make sure they're safe first." "The cubs?" she asked. He nodded. "They still need care." Something flickered in Vera's eyes. Respect, maybe gratitude. She gave a small nod. "You may stay until the next dawn," she said. "Then you must decide where you belong." That day passed quietly. Reed spent time near the cubs, feeding them bits of dried food from his pack and checking their wounds. The pack watched from a distance, murmuring to one another. They were not used to a human moving so gently without fear or command. Even the healers who had first seen him as a danger began to move closer, curious. At one point, the smallest cub, the one with a silver mark on its head, tried to climb into Reed's lap. The others followed, tumbling over each other. Reed laughed softly and let them play. Vara stood nearby, watching. The sight stirred something deep in her chest, a feeling she had buried under pride and anger. Her cubs had nearly been lost forever, yet this strange, fragile creature from another world had carried them back through the storm. Later, as the sun faded and the cold returned, Reed helped the hunters mend a broken wall near the den. He used tools from his kit, showing them how to seal the cracks with melted stone and metal. The Valkyrin watched carefully, their eyes reflecting the glow of his small plasma torch. One of them asked a question in their growling tongue, and Reed tried to answer through gestures and a few translated words. Laughter echoed softly, the first friendly sound between human and Valkyrin in many cycles. When night fell, the pack gathered again. This time Reed sat near the edge of the circle, listening. Vara spoke of the storm, of the danger, and of the humans' actions. "He did what none of us could," she said. "He found them and brought them home." A low murmur spread through the pack. One elder said, "Humans do not help without reason." Vara looked at Reed, her eyes steady. This one did. The pack grew silent again. Then one by one the hunters lowered their heads, not in fear but in respect. Reed didn't know what to say. He had never been honored by aliens before. He only smiled awkwardly and nodded. "I just did what anyone should," he said quietly. Vara gave a short growl, not angry, almost amused. "Then perhaps the universe needs more like you." The next morning, Reed prepared to leave. His radio had regained signal now that the storm was gone, and his small base beacon was blinking faintly in the distance. The colonists would be searching for him soon. He packed his sled with the few things he had, thermal blankets, tools, and food. The cubs followed him as he moved toward the entrance, their tails wagging. Vara stood waiting, her breath rising in white clouds. "You have given back what was lost," she said. "The pack will not forget." Reed smiled. "I didn't do it for thanks." "Then you will still have it," she said firmly. "If ever you are in danger, the Valkyrin will come." Reed looked at her for a long moment. The snow outside was bright under the rising sun, and for the first time since he came to Taralis 9, he didn't feel alone. "You know," he said, "we could learn a lot from each other." Vara tilted her head. "You mean trade?" "Not just trade," Reed said. "Help each other. Humans build things, but you understand the land. Together we might survive better." Her golden eyes watched him carefully. "Perhaps," she said at last. "But trust grows slowly, like fire in wet wood. Then I'll keep it burning, Reed said with a grin. Before he left, the cubs pressed around him, making soft sounds. He knelt and scratched behind their ears. Stay safe, little ones, he said. No more running off in storms, okay? The cub with the silver mark licked his hand and Reed laughed. Then he looked at Vara. Take care of them. I will, she said. And you? Take care of yourself, human. With that, he stepped out into the snow. The wind was calm now, the mountains shining like glass. Behind him, the pack watched until he vanished into the white. Days passed. The colonists found Reed and brought him back to the human outpost. He told them the truth about the Valkyrin, the storm, and the cubs. Some didn't believe him. Others feared the alien pack. But Reed didn't argue. He just looked out across the frozen land and smiled to himself. Then, one evening, a shadow appeared near the edge of the colony fence. The guards raised their rifles, but Reed ran forward and stopped them. Through the falling snow, Vara stood there tall and proud with 2 hunters beside her. She carried something in her hand, a small carved piece of ice shaped like a paw. She stepped closer and held it out to him. The cubs are strong, she said. They remember the warmth of your arms. Reed took the carving gently. I'm glad, he said. And you came all this way just to tell me that? She gave a low growl that almost sounded like a laugh. No, she said. We came to hunt the storm beast near your outpost. We will keep your people safe, as you did for ours. The humans watched in silence as the Valkyrin vanished again into the snow. Reed held the icy carving close, feeling the faint chill against his palm. He didn't know what future awaited this strange alliance, but he knew one thing. Trust had begun to grow, fragile but real, between 2 worlds that once feared each other. From that day on, when the wind howled through the valley and the snow painted the horizon white, humans and Valkyrin hunted together. They built new shelters side by side, shared warmth, and watched over one another. The cubs grew strong and fearless, and sometimes they would visit Reed's camp, running circles around him, their laughter echoing through the cold air. And every night, as he sat by his fire, Reed would look up at the glowing sky of Taralis 9 and remember that first storm, the night he walked into the valley with 3 small lives in his arms. It was the night everything changed. The night a human and a pack of wolves found something greater than survival. They had found family.